Hey, what's up? I'm gonna yap a bit about how to get your videos in HDR and surround sound, how to record them that way, how to edit them that way, stuff like that. I'm focusing on DaVinci Resolve, OBS, and AverMedia Stream Center for my capture card. Um, so yeah, for OBS, because most of you use OBS, you're gonna go to Settings and go to Advanced. You want your color format to be P010, your color space to be Rec 2100 PQ, your color range to be full. So that's how you get HDR to work at a basic level. For some other things, you're going to want to go into your output settings and make sure your profile for recording, streaming, whatever. You can't, I don't think you can stream in HDR, maybe to YouTube, but I don't think Twitch will support it. But you want to select main 10 if it's an option. I'm on AV1, so it's not an option. That encoder for NVINC will automatically pick between main and main 10 depending on the color space used. But for HEVC, H.264, whatever, you have to manually pick main 10 for those. You can make SDR videos in main 10, but YouTube does not support that, so you'll get some color banding and some color artifactings. So I don't recommend doing that. I recommend making SDR videos in main, HDR videos in main 10 if it's an option. For audio, make sure your audio bitrate, by the way, in OBS is cranked up to the max for all of these, and that your audio is set to 5.1 channels. You have to do that first before you touch um, the audio tab here and crank up the bit rates for all 6 tracks. But yeah. Um, the next thing is making sure that your sources are in HDR. So like for any screen captures, you click on it, go to properties, you uncheck this force SDR box. Here's what that looks like, by the way. It doesn't look too different, but when you're in an HDR game, it's very noticeable that you're forcing SDR. I'd only force SDR if your video is in SDR and your display is in HDR. You're going to want to check that checkbox so it looks natural. For your capture card, we're going to go to properties. Set your resolution to the highest resolution to work with. For me, that's 4K. I always make my videos in 4K because YouTube allocates the highest bit rate to 4K. So if you can use that resolution for as much as possible, great. FPS, match the output. Video format, you want to use P010 for HDR. Color space, direct 2100 PQ. Color range, default, because some systems will use limited, some will use full. Most HDR systems will use full, but not all of them will. So just leave it at default. Let the program and the capture card do the work on that. Buffering, make sure it's at the disabled always. That's not just an HDR thing or an SDR thing. That's an always thing. Turn off buffering so you don't get any lag with the capture card, or the lowest lag possible. But yeah. And then check use hardware decoding if when available. That will use the capture card to decode things. If you're working in it with if you're making your content in SDR and you're passing it through an HDR for an HDR display, there's tone mapping involved in that process. And with that checkbox checked, the capture card itself will do the tone mapping. If you don't check it, it's on your computer's processing to do that, your GPU, CPU, whatever, and that's more processing power for your computer to handle. That it honestly doesn't need to. If the capture card supports it, it can just do the decoding on itself, or it's usually better to do that. So yeah, that's how you get HDR to work. Surround sound will work for my computer speakers. You don't see it now, but it will work when I play audio through them. But my capture card, my Live Gamer 4K GC573, it's an HDMI 2.0 card, will not work with surround sound in OBS. So yeah, that's a little caveat there. And any Elgato capture card does not record surround sound, and the Live Gamer Ultra 2.1 and even the newer Live Gamer 4K from AverMedia do not support linear PCM surround sound. They have a plugin in OBS, the Streaming Center plugin, that will work with Dolby Audio for Dolby Digital Audio only, and that's it. So if you're on Switch or Switch 2, you can't record surround sound on those capture cards actually at all. So yeah. Up next, we're going to hop into the video editor to edit HDR for DaVinci Resolve. First thing first, I'm on an OLED display with HDR. If you go into the NVIDIA app, make sure you turn off G-Sync. You can either do it up here globally or do it per display right here with this switch. Go in the system, displays, either flip it here or flip it here. To set your display for HDR, we're going to go into the Windows settings. Is this, why isn't it pulling up settings? There it is. Go to display, click on your display, make sure HDR is enabled. Give it a sec for that to work. Turn on HDR. Uh, I like to have auto HDR on and stuff like that. And then also while we're here, because why not, click on advanced display. Make sure your refresh rate's the maximum setting. And then you can see your settings here. You want bit depth to be 10-bit. If it's not showing 10-bit, I mean, HDR will still work fine. But you might have to lower your refresh rate to get this to show 10-bit. So yeah. Because 10-bit is HDR. But you can use HDR in 8-bit containers. But it's not the best. But yeah, for the minimum settings possible. Yeah. The next thing is make sure you have the HDR Windows HDR calibration app on the Windows App Store. Make sure you make a calibration profile in that to find your max brightness, stuff like that. Setting your paper white settings, minimum brightness, maximums, stuff like that. Get a calibration profile for your display so HDR looks the best it can be. Yeah. Um, yeah. And then if you're on an OLED display, make sure you turn off G-Sync in the NVIDIA app. All right. With that out of the way, let's go and pull up DaVinci Resolve. I stick it in my start menu because if it's in the taskbar, every time you update the app, it'll just delete itself. So, but in the start menu, it'll stay there. So that's why I put it in the start menu. Also, when you download DaVinci Resolve updates on the support page, when you click on your operating system, in the bottom left, when they ask you to fill in credentials and stuff, like fill in information, in the bottom left there's a download only button. So you click that, it'll just start downloading the folder. You don't have to like type it in anything like your studio code or anything else. You just go. All right, so let's talk about how to edit. How the first things you need to do when editing your content. If this is your first time ever messing with DaVinci Resolve to get surround sound and HDR, you need to configure the editor to do that. So you're gonna go to DaVinci Resolve, go to Preferences, or just Control Comma will get you here. From here, we're gonna go to Video and Audio I/O and set up surround sound. Under the monitor speaker configuration, you're gonna set it to main, the format as 5.1. Configure your speakers here. Usually they're in order. 1 to 6 is surround sound. If you're going through headphone jacks like I am, I'm on a Logitech Z906 setup, so it's just in order. But it might be different for HDMI setups and stuff like that. But yeah, that'll configure your speakers to surround sound. To configure HDR to be played back in the video editor, you need to go to the General tab, click on Use 10-bit precision in viewers if available. That's grayed out for me, but it shouldn't be for you if you're an SDR. And then use Windows Display Color Management and HDR for viewers. Once that's done, click Save. You might have to restart the video editor, and then from here on out, those settings will be configured permanently. Everything else I talk about will have to be done for your project or every time you make a video, which is really annoying. Up next, let's do project settings. Let's go and do that. So we're going to hit this gear icon in the bottom right, and these are your project settings. These are per project. So you can make a preset by clicking the 3 dots, clicking on your default preset, clicking update preset. You can also hit save current settings as preset, give it a name like HDR here, and then you can update it by doing update or load it by hitting load, and that'll give you your settings immediately. So I like to make all my videos in 4K because YouTube allocates the highest bitrate to 4K content. If your video file itself isn't in 4K, which is nice, you could also make your video files in whatever resolution you want. Like, let's say your game is in 1440p, make your videos in 1440p, your video files. That way, when you go and make proxies in the video editor, your processing times on that will be pretty quick because it's a 1440p video compared to doing a 4K file when the content is 1440p. But yeah, here's my optimized media and render cache settings if you want to copy them, by the way. I just copied what ePostFox does. But the main things we're going to talk about here is under color management. If I can find the color management tab here. For SDR, you set to DaVinci YRGB, and then you don't have to worry about this. You can set it to Rec 709 scene, and you're good to go. The output color space can be the same as the timeline. Yeah, or you can set this to Rec 709, Rec 709 scene, and that is your SDR settings. But for HDR, we have to change it up a little bit. We have to do YRGB color manage, uncheck this automatic box. Quick little caveat for my YouTube uploads. Let's see if this is working actually. I have two HDR test videos up on my channel. MK World HDR testing. It's unlisted, so it's only by link. This one isn't showing in HDR yet, so I don't think the automatic settings will work. But maybe they do. I don't know. YouTube doesn't tell you about HDR processing. I'll show you that one in a sec. But so far, it doesn't seem to work. So it seems like you have to manually input your settings. So that's kind of annoying. For color processing mode, you want Rec 2020. I'm just actually going to pull up my preset here. I'm going to load it. You want to check the use separate color space and gamma. Select your output color space to Rec 2020. Your gamma on the right side to Rec 2100 ST2084. ST2084 is the same thing as PQ. Check the HDR mastering is 4. Set your monitor's max HDR nit brightness here, and you're good to go for your project settings. Once everything is configured for your HDR project, you can click on these three dots, click Save Current Settings as Preset, give it a name and hit Save. Then you'll see that preset here. You can just load it up every single project now, so you don't have to do this for every single project you make. You can just load the preset, which is nice. And then for your default project, you can have that set for SDR, so that way you can flip between whatever you need for your projects. You don't have to set up those settings every single time, which is nice. Now we can get into content. So you drag in your files to the video editor. For every single file that is in HDR, you're going to want to right-click the actual video in the master section. You're going to want to do two things. First off is input color space. It will default to project, and it will look like this. You can see how washed out that looks. You're going to want to go into input color space and click same as timeline, and bam, now your footage is viewing in HDR. That was the last thing that no one told me about HDR, and I was wondering why the heck isn't this working? That's why. Also, you're going to want proxies because 4K 60 FPS footage, especially in HDR or just even in general, in AV1 high quality standards, it's going to be difficult to play back. So, you're going to want to make a proxy. So go to proxy media, generate proxy media. You can also generate optimized media as well underneath that if you want for the footage. Because once it's in your timeline, you can't make a proxy of it here. So, yeah. Yeah. So that's how you do that for proxies. The next thing is if you go into the playback tab. These are just general miscellaneous settings for Resolve. These don't affect quality or surround sound or anything like 4K 60 HDR or surround sound. These are just general settings to use. So yeah. Check use optimized media if available. Proxy handling, select preferred proxies. Timeline playback resolution set to your preference. I like it on quarter. You have to do that every time for every project, unfortunately. Photo album preview resolution auto. Render cache smart. That one's usually you have to configure. Fusion memory cache on auto. You might have to configure that one. It might be off by default. And yeah. And then for Fairlight, this is for surround sound specifically. You go to Fairlight bus format, select your format 5.x and check 5.1. That will get your output to be in 5.1. So you'll actually hear everything in 5.1 like it's supposed to be. So yeah. Now, a quick caveat with 5.1 editing is that YouTube will make every video you make will convert every video you make to stereo. If you're watching on a phone or a web browser, your only option for audio is stereo audio. So if you're mixing your video in surround sound, be careful. If you're playing music in the stereo speakers or even in the rear speakers, that's all going to be downmixed to stereo. So whatever's in your center channel has to fight with that, and it may not be hearable. I've noticed that problem as well, where I'm playing music in my left and right speakers. Any sound effects I put in the center channel aren't hearable. So make sure when you edit your sound effects that you want in the center channel, in the stereo channel, to make sure you can hear it first, and then you can stick it in the center channel afterwards. But that's kind of a good workflow advice for that. Side note, up here in the timeline, make sure you hit prefer proxies. You'll see a little PXY in purple. That'll tell you it's working, so you don't have to do that. But yeah. For audio tracks, you can click on add track 5.x 5.1. You can also right click on a track, change track type 5.x 5.1 to do that. You can use Fairlight to edit tracks if you're working with like stereo music as an example in 5.1. You can right click, you can come down over here to this dynamic section, like right here. Go to A1 or go to your audio track, scroll down a bit till you see pan, double click it, click on boom, and you see boom here, turn it on, set this negative infinity to like whatever you prefer for your subwoofer. I usually like between like -15 and -20, depending on the audio source, and that'll give you a subwoofer effect for whatever you're working with if it doesn't support it natively. This does, so I'm not going to worry about that, but maybe you're working with stereo music as an example, or stereo clips, and you want bass to do it, you want bass on that, that's how you do that. So that's how you get a low channel or a LFE subwoofer effects from that. And yeah, I also forgot to cover oh, and then output settings. While we're here, we'll talk about that. I also need to cover my other application too for recording. Forgot to do that. So I have two presets, main YouTube and HDR main YouTube. For main YouTube, the main differences in my encoding profile is that the main, I'm using MKV format, AV1 codec, and NVIDIA type with network optimization checked. Yeah, for resolution, it's timeline, frame rate's timeline, output color space is same as timeline, and output gamma is same as timeline, but that's going to change for HDR, by the way. Main profile, because we're in SDR, control variable bitrate, and you could see my settings. For advanced, there's my settings that I use. You can also export subtitles as well, and that should go to YouTube. You can also upload directly to YouTube if you want. I find it slower though than uploading the file, but if you want to do it, you can. It is convenient. For audio settings, linear PCM, the highest sample rate, the highest bit depth, and you can normalize if you want. I don't like to normalize my stuff. I like to let YouTube do that for things like music montages and stuff. You want that to be really loud, so I usually would just normalize it in editing the true peak at 0 and leave it alone after that. But if you want to normalize to YouTube, there is a YouTube preset here to do that for just general videos, but it usually will make the video quieter. So that's kind of a thing to note. And then you can put your file name in here for custom and stuff like that. But yeah, no, but we're worried about HDR here. So I'm going to click on my my HDR main YouTube preset. The only difference on this preset from the other ones is that, so you can see here the color space that's pulling from the timeline is the exact same. My encoding profile is now at main 10 because we're working in 10-bit. But down here, under the advanced settings section, color space tag needs to be set to Rec 2020, and your gamma tag needs to be Rec 2100 ST2084. That will tell YouTube to work in HDR. I've also tried with same as project for both of those, and so far I have not found YouTube to work with HDR. It can take a while though, so maybe it's just not, it just hasn't processed it yet. I can't tell you. I don't know. YouTube doesn't tell you this stuff. But yeah, if auto settings work, great. You can automatically set it up, but otherwise you have to manually do it. Luckily, if it's a preset like this, you can click on the three dots and hit save as new preset, and you can name it your HDR preset like I did. So that way you can flip between main and HDR main for YouTube, and there you go. From there, you can render out the video, and it'll be in HDR. And then for YouTube, you can upload it to YouTube, and that file should work in HDR. Side note, I didn't pull up my capture card recording settings, so let's backtrack and do that now. I use AverMedia Streaming Center for my capture card to get surround sound from it. You might notice some weirdness with the background from Wallpaper Engine. There's an HDR button right here to get HDR, so that's a quick, easy way to do it. But I'm going to go into my settings here. Give it a sec. Going to go into recording settings. I will usually work in 4K 60, or honestly, resolution, whatever the content is. If it's a 1440p, if you're displaying in 1440p, like your videos in 14, for example, the Switch 2, if I set the 1440p, the resolution will be 1440p. If I'm doing 1440p 120 FPS, that's what the video will be. You get the gist. If it's 4K 60, it'd be 4K 60. Let the editor do that in 4K always, because YouTube will give you the highest bitrate for 4K content. And if you, whatever your master file is for the video itself, whatever the master file is doing, will give you the lowest times for rendering, proxies, optimized media, whatever. So don't overdo the resolution for that specifically and the frame rate. But yeah. If you want the native frame rate, you can actually record and select 120. I don't know the bitrate for that. I have to look it up. But my bitrate is 10K in this software for 4K 60 HDR. Audio channels, I do 5.1. The audio bitrate's the max. Video format is AV1. You might have to click this little plus button next to record to get out some of these settings, by the way. AV1 profiles main for HEVC and H.264. You have to do main 10 for HDR, main for SDR. Keyframes 2, that's what NVIDIA recommends. Preset is P5. If you do keyframe 4, preset like P7 to get the best quality, 1, it's very marginal, and 2, your processing times for like proxies and rendering your video will take flippin' forever. An 18-minute video took me an hour and a half to just render out. It's ridiculous. Use these settings, it's a bit quicker. So, yeah. And then make sure you select HDR for HDR, SDR, and click on the HDR recording mode for HDR. Up next, we hop into YouTube. How do you know if your video is actually in HDR or not? So when you upload your video, here's YouTube Studio. I'm gonna pull up my MK World HDR testing video, and you can see that it's not actually in HDR. So the auto settings don't seem to work for that. But if I pull in the ones where I manually put the settings, you'll see in the quality selector, we have HDR settings. It took forever. It took like a day, but it showed up. It takes forever. If I go into the video settings for the video details and look at the video qualities, you can see the standard definition, high definition, and 4K. You have zero way to know about HDR processing. The best thing to do is use an HDR display, like your phone. If you're on a OLED phone, that should support HDR. Most OLED phones will do HDR. Or if you're on a computer monitor that supports HDR and a browser that can output HDR, Firefox notoriously does not output HDR. I believe it can upload it fine, but just to be safe, I use Chrome, or I'm using Helium here. That one does output HDR files, so just in case, maybe upload with Chrome for HDR content, just to be safe, but it should work fine in Firefox. Yeah, the only way to do it is to view the video on YouTube and check the quality selector and see if it's saying HDR or not. That's your only way to know. YouTube can take fucking forever to process HDR content. It can take like a day. So don't expect it immediately. It's really annoying to test, but yeah. Yeah, that's how you know if your content's in HDR. For stuff like this Kirby Air Riders gameplay here, this was recorded in the Avery Media app in HDR. It never worked in HDR. I think I might have edited this. I don't freaking know, but yeah, you can see it's kind of dim. It's not playing back in HDR for some reason. But I think because I had to stick it in a video editor and the settings weren't correct for that, so that's why it did that. But the master file, I don't know. It should have been in HDR. But yeah, I know OBS has been pretty nice. This Switch 2 video here with Breath of the Wild and other games is in HDR. So yeah, but it's not in surround sound. The only one that I've gotten in both surround sound and HDR is that Mario Kart World test video. That's like 37 seconds long. So yeah. Some caveats for surround sound viewing. If you want to view my videos in surround sound for YouTube, here's how you do it. You will never get surround sound playback on YouTube from desktop, from a web browser, any web browser. The web browsers support surround sound, but the website YouTube does not. So even if you have a AVR computer set up, or you're using headphone jacks to get 3 headphone jacks to get surround sound, how that works is you have one headphone jack for the stereo, left to right speakers, one for your center channel and your subwoofer, one for your rear 2 speakers. That's how that works, by the way, if you're curious. I'm on a Logitech D906. That's what I do for my setup. But yeah, this was my old TV setup. But yeah. Anywho, I digress. If you're on an HDMI AVR, it's just HDMI plugged into it, whatever. But none of that will work on a web browser in the YouTube app. None of that will go through in surround sound, which is really annoying. Same with like media apps. If you're watching Netflix or whatever, none of that will be in surround sound because of DRM. Piracy. Yeah, that's why none of these places will support surround sound. Really freaking annoying. The browser will support it. I know Chrome does. I don't know about Firefox, but yeah. So that's kind of a annoying thing. If you're on a phone, that will always do stereo, from what I've noticed, because it's a phone. You only have two speakers. You have the speakerphone, the one that you hold up to your ear, your earpiece, and then you have your actual speaker on the edge of the phone. Um, so that's how you get two channels off of a phone. There's no need to get surround. I don't think it even works. Maybe if you use like AirPods virtualized, surround sound options for AirPods, maybe it'll work. But I don't trust it because you're still working with the stereo output at the end of the day. But yeah, I don't think it'll work for YouTube at all on iPhones or just any phone. Um, the only way to get surround sound playback through YouTube is through the Media app. You can find that on smart TVs, although I wouldn't recommend that one. Game consoles, streaming devices like stream sticks or stream boxes. That's how you get HDR to work. Um, for TVs, I have found that some stream boxes and some TVs will output everything to a surround sound, even stereo content. So on my LG TV, my LG C4, I've also noticed this on the C9 from 2019, that everything will play in surround sound. Even stereo made content will play incorrectly in the center speaker and the rear speakers. So that's not good. I also have an on 4K Pro, a Google TV, that does the same thing, and the new Google TV streamer will do the same exact shenanigans. It just plays everything in surround sound, whether it's made with it or not. Really stupid. So I wouldn't recommend those for surround sound viewing if you have a surround sound setup. Anything else, depending on the device, should be fine. Roku's I've had perfect experiences with, or mostly perfect experiences with. Some Roku's don't support all the formats for surround sound like Dolby Atmos, but then again, that's not really a problem for my videos or for YouTube. You don't have Atmos support in YouTube anyways, so it doesn't matter. Um, yeah, I know like the Roku Express 4K Plus, which is a good cheap stream stick, doesn't support Atmos. And Amazon Fire Sticks, I don't believe some of them do as well. Some do, some don't. Depends on the model. I don't use those, but yeah. Game consoles are great devices. PS5 Series X will support Dolby Digital surround sound or just linear PCM surround sound, whatever. They'll even support Atmos now, but I don't think that works in YouTube. But again, not a problem. The app doesn't support Dolby Atmos, so they're both great devices for surround sound viewing. And the Switch only supports linear PCM surround sound in the dock for the Switch One. And on YouTube, that should in theory work for videos. Nice, talking flower. Um, yeah, so in theory, the Switch in dock mode should work with surround sound. Because it goes through linear PCM only, you will need you'll need to go through HDMI to get that. So you'll need an HDMI surround sound soundbar, or you'll need an AVR to get surround sound from the Switch specifically. If you're going through Toslink to get surround sound, that will not work on the Switch at all. So that's kind of annoying. You have to use stereo. But for the Xbox and PlayStation consoles, for the Xbox One and PS4 newer, should be fine. PS5 supports Atmos. Xbox One even supports Atmos, like the Xbox One will. So any of them will. So yeah. Um, but if you want the best viewing experience for a high-end TV like my LG C4, I recommend the Apple TV for your viewing. For Amazon Prime and Disney Plus, that content is made in 40 FPS, and on consoles and Google TV, like on the Chromecast Google TV 4K that I use, because that one will work with surround sound and display things natively, stereos and stereo, surrounds and surround, whatever. Um, for those devices, when you go and watch Disney Plus or Amazon Prime Video, the TV will just be in 60 hertz mode, and it'll act as if the content is made in 60 hertz, despite it not being in 60 hertz. Even if you enable 40 hertz on an Xbox, it will not do that. The only device that will engage the TV into 40 hertz mode is the Apple TV 4K and NVIDIA Shield TVs. Those two are some of the best devices for viewing. The Apple TV doesn't support physical media formats. If you're trying to watch a rip of a physical media on like a NAS or something, you can't do that on an Apple TV. But on the NVIDIA Shields, those will do it. I don't have an NVIDIA Shield, but yeah. Um, so yeah, that's my yap sesh on devices to use. For the average consumer, for you watching this video, Honestly, for my content, it really doesn't matter where you watch it. Just watch it in the media app. Just try to avoid devices that will force everything to surround sound, like a TV or some stream boxes and some stream sticks. If you're on a Roku, Apple TV, uh, you're generally fine. If you're on a Google TV, or any Chromecast, or on I don't know about Fire Sticks. I don't know about those. Um, I wouldn't recommend watching on those. But yeah. Um, and game consoles. Game consoles are a great place to get surround sound for videos, for YouTube videos. But yeah, that's my yap sesh on that. I don't go back to the Wii U, Xbox 360, PS3 generation. I don't think those would support those don't support HDR anyways, but maybe I know they do for surround sound. I don't know about the YouTube app on those devices, but they're kind of old, slow, and laggy. So yeah. Anywho, that's my yap sesh on how to make SDR videos, how to edit SDR videos, how to upload SDR videos, and how to watch, uh, I said SDR, HDR and surround sound videos. Hope you all enjoy, and hopefully we get to see more content like that in the future for especially HDR, but also just surround sound as well. That'd be nice because barely any content on YouTube supports is in surround sound, and for HDR, especially on the Switch 2, there's not much content in HDR on YouTube. It'd be nice to see games like for the Switch 2 for games with HDR games. Um, um, by the way, you want to set your Switch 2 to do the contents like format for HDR. You should probably know that though. And HDTV test has calibration settings for consoles and Switch 2. But anywho, I digress. Um, for what was I saying? Um, shoot. Oh yeah, for games. Kirby Air Riders is okay, not the best. Mario Kart World uses a different color space and converts to HDR, so you're not getting the best experience in that game. DK Bonanza is capped at 400 nits brightness no matter what, which is kind of annoying. Even though the screen on the Switch 2 is 450 nits, they capped it at 400 for the game, whether you're in docked or handheld mode for HDR, which is really annoying. And then yeah, the best implementation of HDR so far is Metroid Prime 4. I don't know about Star Fox. I haven't had people test Star Fox HDR, or even like Splatoon Raiders when that comes out. I don't know how that HDR implementation is going to be. I haven't actually played the game in HDR. It's not out yet until for another like less than a week. I'll have videos in HDR for that though. Um, but yeah, but if you want the best showcase for HDR, Prime 4 is the game to play. Metroid Prime 4. But yeah. Pokemon Legends ZA does not support HDR. Um, Silk Song doesn't support HDR, etc. So those will be in SDR. Um, but yeah, I digress. And another thing for me as well, if I'm flipping between an SDR and HDR game like Splatoon 2, Splatoon 3, and Splatoon Raiders, that's in HDR, my videos will be in HDR for those because Raiders is in HDR, even though Splatoon 2 and 3 are not. So yeah, because I can't force that part to be in SDR, but I can if it's in HDR. So it'll just be a little dimmer. But yeah, anywho, I digress. That's my yap sesh on stuff. If you want calibration settings for your displays, for your consoles, the YouTube channel HDTV Test is a great place to go for calibration settings for your for consoles. And also they're good at like high-end TV settings. Calibrated, so Caleb rated is another good channel for TV reviews and picture settings and stuff, but I generally prefer HDTV Test. But yeah, those are two channels I recommend for TVs to check out if you want the best settings, picture settings, and whatnot for your displays. Yeah. So yeah, that's my yap session on that. Hope you enjoyed. Happy making content, and yeah. Peace.